You hopefully remember this slide right here where we talked about GitHub security management and how it manages user access. The personal user account part is something we covered in a lot of detail now, but we saw that we have some limits here when it comes to managing specific access rights for collaborators of our project. This is where this part of organization logic comes into play. We can also create so-called organization accounts, and then as part of this organization account, we can add other accounts. And this gives us great option to manage the organization, but also to have specific member role access for the members of our organization. And inside this organization, and based on this member role access, we can specify the access type our organization members have for specific repositories inside this organization. And this is then hopefully the big picture here of the whole security part. So if you work in smaller projects with personal user accounts and some collaborators, you can perfectly do that. If you are part of a bigger project, or if you want to manage the specific rights the members of your project have, then an organization account might be the way to go. Therefore, we'll explore now the organization account and what we can do with it as a next step in this course. So I'm back in my account, so the owner account. Currently, this is still a personal user account. You can transform any account basically into an organizational account, or you can create an organization from your account. You can do this by accessing your profile. So let's go to the profile options over here and then go to settings. And there we'll go to the organizations option down here, this one. Inside the organizations, well, no surprise, you can now see that you can either create a new organization with this button here. You can also find a list of any accounts which might be part of an existing organization already. For example, and now I'm back in my other account, which we used as a collaborator account so far. This account, for example, is part of the Academind organization, so of our company, Max and I, for example, are part of. Now, as I'm already in this account, besides the options to leave a current organization or to create a new one, you can also see that this transform account option down here is not active in my case. Because whenever your personal user account here is part of an organization already, then this account can't be transferred into an organization. Therefore, if you want to transform a current account, you are not allowed to be part of an organization at this stage. Nevertheless, let's go back to my account, so my current personal user account. Here we are, this is my personal account again, and let's now explore the options we have right here. The, most obvious option is this new organization option we have over here. Let's explore this by clicking onto New Organization. In there, we can now select a plan. As you can see, although the name team, kind of indicates this is the plan we need to be able to create an organization. As mentioned earlier in the account types lecture, the free option, so the option to the left, is totally fine for individuals and organizations, and it's a free one. So we'll create a free organization down here by clicking onto this option. Now we can give this organization an account name. We could, for example, say GitHub course organization. This one, for example. You can also find the URL of the finished organization down here. Then you have to enter a contact email. I'll use a personal email for this here, but feel free to enter this on your own. I'll do this in a few seconds. And then you have to decide if this organization belongs to a personal account, which I will select in my case, or if the organization is part of a business or an institution. In this case, the personal account will be the option we go for here. And after entering the contact email, we can then proceed with this next button down here, which I'll do, after entering the email. This is it. We now finished the creation of our GitHub course organization. We could now immediately add organization members down here. I'll not do this at the moment. And first we could complete our setup with this option down here, or simply skip this step. This what I will go for now, because we will explore the options and, well, the possibilities we have in our organization now together. So let's skip this step. And here we can then, well, share some information about our organization to GitHub. You can do this, of course, as this organization, well, will not be an organization we'll keep forever. I'll just go down and click submit right here. This will basically allow us to directly go to this organization account. Now, what does this organization look like now? How can we explore it from inside our profile? Well, if we go to the starting page of my account once again, you can see everything looks the way it looked before. So I just got access to the two repositories I referred to. But now up here where you can see the username, you can now switch the accounts. So here in my personal user account, I have these two repositories. But if I would switch now to the GitHub course organization account, let's do this now, then you see we don't have any, well, repositories in this organization. So this was the creation of the organization. In the next lecture, we'll dive a bit deeper here and also add some team members. So we created our first organization. What's missing here, of course, are members of this organization and also repositories. For this, I'll get started with creating a new repository here on GitHub. We know how this works. So inside our organization, we can now click this new button, create a new repository. Let's call it organization repo 1. I'm not very creative here, as you can see it. The description is something we'll skip here, and I'll keep the repository private for the moment. The other options here, readme file, git ignore, and license, will be skipped also. So let's create this repository. Here we are. With this, we have our first repository here in our project. So if we now go back to the starting page, we can see the repository that is created in here. What about our team members now? How can we add people to this organization? Well, first, let's have a look at the repository in here. And let's go to the settings option that we had before, because in there we were able to invite collaborators to this organization. Let's see if this also works in here now. So we'll go to settings. There we'll go to manage access. And there we see some interesting information. We have basically the same options we had in the personal user account. So we had the private repository option, and we had this direct access information about how many people, well, can kind of interact with the repository. But we have this new option here, the base role. So at the moment, all one members, so myself basically, can access this repository. Now, what about this base role now? Well, if we click onto manage, in this base permissions part, this one right here, we get a very important information already. Base permissions to the organization's repositories, and now the important part, apply to all members and excludes outside collaborators. Now things get interesting. In the personal user account, we had the option to add collaborators to collaborate on the repository. Here in the organization, we now have the option to also add so-called outside collaborators, because a collaborator doesn't have to be a member of the organization, or we can add members to it. And for these members, so for members only, we can define base permissions for our project. And that's exactly what I was talking about in the earlier lectures. Here, we can now specify that for members of an organization, although this is a private repository, remember that, we can say that these members, well, either don't have any permissions at all, these members have read permissions, write permissions, which of course include read permissions in the end, and also admin permissions. We'll stick to the already selected default one, read permission, meaning that if we add a member now, this member should not be allowed to push to our repository. We'll see if this works in a few seconds, of course. As a next step, we can define what members are allowed to do or not when it comes to, well, creating repository types. We can see that, well, creating public repositories is something members are allowed to do, but we could say that they are not allowed to create private repositories. I'll stick with the default values here though. If we scroll down a bit further, we can define whether members are allowed to fork repositories. As this is something we did not explore yet, I'll skip this point for the moment. Same thing here for the pages creation part, also something we did not explore in detail so far. And down here, not relevant for us at the moment as our members don't have admin rights, we could also further define what rights admin members have in our project. Down here, you can find some member team permissions because we can also create teams here as part of the organization. This is also something we'll of course have a look at. But that's the basic idea now. With members, we have a different type of collaboration enabled, which allows us to specify which, well, rights these members of the organization have.